Jesse, welcome back to the Data Center Revolution. Do me a favor, to anybody that's out there that doesn't know who you are yet, reintroduce yourself, please, so that people know who we're going to be unpeeling today.
Sure. My name's Jesse Sargent. I'm the president of delivery at Overwatch. I consider myself very blessed to be one of the co-founders there, and am having the time of my life. Former Army infantry, dad, husband, four little ones running around at home, like to coach football. My background's in the mechanical trade, but now what I love the most is we're about building people and teams and leaders for the data center space.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a good introduction. I like how you didn't use your jazz hands the whole time. You actually had some self-control.
It's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the problem for anybody that's listening. First of all, thank you for following. Thank you for listening to the Data Center Revolution podcast. Some of these podcasts are here to entertain, and some of them are here to educate. And we've been kind of peering through the industry, doing a lot of things, based on energy here, based on this there. But we also started a data center podcast series going back of more than a year, right? So some of these podcasts are also here to inspire.
Yeah.
Right. So there are people that are listening right now, if they're at the gym, if they're driving to work or driving home from work, and they're trying to understand the industry. It's really easy for us to think about the complications of technology. AI is such a prevalent term, but people don't really know what it is yet.
Yeah.
Just as much as cloud, people know it's such a prevalent term, but they really don't know what it is yet. And what we've tried to do on this podcast is deconstruct the complications of those technologies to bring them down to a level in which everybody here can understand. Because I believe that giving people the opportunity to understand this industry gives them the opportunity to have a job in this industry. A new job means a new life. And that's what we're in the business of doing. This industry is incredible because it creates so much new opportunity.
Yeah.
But a little bit, we started a podcast series called The Human Reset.
Yep.
And for those that are listening, we targeted two people, both from Ohio. From the female side, we got Jen Reniger, who lives probably within 30 minutes of you.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Female's perspective going into this industry. What's the trials and tribulations of being a woman, being a mom, being a single mom, the things that you're doing as you're trying to build your career, and what are the insecurities and what are the challenges that we face in that perspective? Because I think there's a lot of women that can relate to Jen Reniger, and I hope, and I'm certain that there are plenty of women that were inspired by her.
Sure.
You and I did a podcast too, right? So I've done Jen's next piece already and it went out, and now it is time to catch up with yours. So we started our podcast with you more than a year ago, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And to read people back in and listen, before we unpackage some of this stuff that's obviously very personal, for those that are listening, this is why I would say listen to this podcast. There are podcasts that we have that are going to talk about the existential threats of this industry around energy. And we're going to be unpackaging very complicated aspects of technology. We're even, we've dove into nuclear multiple times. Okay. But there's one thing that this industry doesn't focus enough on, and that's the human dynamic, the human resource. We think about the AI resources. We think about all the technological resources and the MEP that we use to build these data centers, all the servers and storage and networking and software around with the electrical and mechanical components that are necessary to build these skies for the cloud and the home for AI.
Yeah.
But what we don't do as an industry is really focus on the human aspect enough, and the personal aspect that we put into this game with our own careers. Many of us are pouring our hearts and souls into what we do for a living. And some people get an incredible healthy return from that. And some get nothing other than another opportunity because you failed at this one. And we learned early when we were building a technology incubator for labor that we had to focus huge on humans.
Yeah.
And we were blind to it in the very beginning. Like, we were a 5.5-year-old startup.
Yeah.
You're one of my co-founders. So we started crawling, walking, and running together. And what we found was we could understand means and methods of delivery of construction and long components of equipment and how to, mitigate risk to schedules. But we kept running into problems that we didn't expect or we couldn't expect, and they were human problems.
Almost always, yeah.
Well, if you trace the human problems back far enough, how far can we trace them back to?
Oh, I mean,
ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so at the end of the day, for those that aren't listening, that are listening now, or that haven't listened yet, for listening now, I want to take you on a journey on what it takes to start your career in this industry, from zero. We all started from somewhere. None of us knew experience of data centers when we got into this industry. So we all started from somewhere, and then the limitations to our growth sometimes we feel really only come from the environment, the external environment that we sit within. And there are limitations of construct to one company or the other, but typically the limitation for our growth and our happiness comes from us. And your story is obviously incredibly inspiring and inspires me. And your first part was a very complicated one, because remember we did the first one.
Yeah.
And that was a long time ago. You were a completely different man. I mean, physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything. Yeah. So why don't you, if you remind some of us of the first time that we sat down, you know, I put you into a gauntlet for a little bit of time to reset something.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So it was, you know, we linked up with, you know, Dakota here, and I was going out there and working out with them, and he brought in a great lady. Rebecca was doing, you know, some nutrition stuff for me, and they were teaching me what to eat, what to cook, and, you know, how to work out and things like that. And, you know, complete transparency, as you know now, you know, there's a reason that my 2.0 episode's a year and a half later, right? Like, and I think it's a good story to share, because a lot of people look at failure and things like that as a negative thing, right? And it's all about your mindset and how you approach things. And, you know, even at the time, I definitely viewed it as a negative, you know, as you know. You know, I think when you're engaging with somebody like that, that's a Medal of Honor recipient and stuff like that, and is, you know, hard as nails and with the things that he does, there's a lot to that. When you're a 300-pound, you know, dad of 4 that's been out of the game for, at that point, I had been out of the military, you know, since 2013. And
so let me pull a plug on that real quick, so people just that are listening. Jesse's background, extensive combat experience in the Army, came from Ohio, was an athlete, football, wrestler.
Yeah.
And you've lived a life of endurance and suffering
100%,
and pain.
Yeah.
And then you came here, and we you weren't happy with the circumstances of aspects of your life. I myself was going through a huge reset, going through my personal journey.
Yeah.
And we introduced you to Dakota Meyer, Medal of Honor recipient. We worked out with him a lot back in those days. But when we threw you over the fence to him to figure out he tried to break you. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I believe that put a big chip on your shoulder as well.
It did. And, you know, partially because, you know, all the things that you were just mentioning, right? Like, did play, you know, very competitive football in Ohio. We take it very seriously there, as you know. Wrestled, you know, like being in shape and being tough was something that it was a given, you know what I mean, at the time. And then I went into the Army, and you know, best and worst times of my life, you know, I mean, by far the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. But, you know, you're obviously in great shape there, you know.
You've also, look, they pressure test in the military.
100%.
Especially even combat. So you knew what pain and suffering looked like.
100%. We
sent you into Dakota. You know, you kind of did a month of which you were just trying to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
And then the rest was on you, right? So a lot of people don't have the framework at home. They don't have the support structure at home to have the ability to rebuild yourself. You know, you said something on your first podcast, which is a part that I've taken with me a lot, which was you were hitting rock bottom in your life. You were not happy with yourself physically, emotionally, or spiritually.
Yeah.
And I was not happy with you either.
Yeah.
Because I love you enough to hold you accountable and tell you that that's not acceptable. And there were things that you were doing to where, as a human being, man, I care about you, but as your business partner, you suck. Because your inability to be healthy for 4 straight weeks. I mean, you were not able to stay healthy for 4 straight weeks. Once a month, you would get sick, right? And the thing is people don't realize how much of an impact that has on their output and productivity as a husband, as a father, as a business partner, as a coach, and all the other things that you do in life. So for us, we started realizing that Some people don't even have the framework at home to reinvent themselves. What happens if we could create the framework in our work environment that allows people to reinvent themselves?
Yeah.
And for us, we know that there's a lot of transitioning veterans coming out of the military, and the average veteran takes 3 jobs in the first 4 years in transition because they just can't acclimate to the civilian fleet.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's emotionally taxing. And we started with trying to get your mind hard again because you know what hard looks like.
Oh yeah, sure.
And you kind of had to go to war with your inner bitch.
You do. And you know, doing that for a month, right?
Which was a ball buster.
It was, but it was perfect. And when I say perfect, like perfect doesn't always mean everything went perfect, right?
Yeah.
What I mean
needed.
was I learned some things that I knew I needed to be doing and some things that I knew I didn't need to be doing. You know what I mean? I'm not 25 years old anymore. I don't need to go carry around a 60-pound ruck to prove that I'm still hard to somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but this what I did learn is that you can do a lot with your diet, number one. Number two, you can do a lot by just starting to move. You know what I mean? And just a mistake I made a lot in the past and one that I learned again during that month phase. And this is where, like, if I was going to recommend to somebody to do it differently than me, like, going to a Navy SEAL and having them, you know, put you through a workout, probably not the best thing to do if you're in that shape, you know what I mean? And, because it does, you know, listen, when you don't move for years, you know what I mean? Like, and when I say move, obviously, you know, we were always on the road, like I'm moving and stuff like that, but I'm not intentionally trying to raise my heart rate. I'm not working out. I'm not doing anything. Right?
If anything, you're doing the opposite of that. You're going out and having lots of long days of meetings with tons of stress. Then you're going to steak dinners, and then you guys are going to go have a few drinks and build some relationships, right?
Every time.
And then when you get done, you wake up and you do it all over again. This industry there is no shortage of happy hours in this industry. Yeah. We are creating environments where, look, I love happy hours too, but I love healthy hours just as much now, right? But going back to you real quick, we gave you kind of a recipe on how to do things, and then we shocked the whole system and said, now figure it out. And then sent you back on your way home to go be a father and a husband and all those things and figure out what were you going to do, because it's easy to go do that and endure that. Like, intelligence doesn't make strong leaders. Character builds strong leaders, and character is built through suffering, right?
Yeah, so anybody can do something for 30 days.
So, and when you're externally motivated, where you have people that are defining a plan of the day for you, that's something.
100%.
And some people don't have that structure. They don't have the ability to maintain that themselves. They don't have an external force at home that's going to hold them accountable to that standard or help support that structure. And then they certainly aren't going to have that at work, because traditionally, if you're underperforming at work, the first rule of management is to go find a better resource to fix the deficiency.
Yeah.
The thing is we don't have unlimited resources in this industry, right, of leaders or talent. We're at a huge shortage of talent in this industry. Existential threat. Number one existential threat from a national security perspective is a labor force. Without a labor force, we're not building power plants, we're not building data centers. And we lose the race of AI to China. So we need a labor force. It's the number one thing. But we need a healthy labor force. So we need a strong labor force. And we need one from a business perspective as well, because as your business partner, when you were unhealthy, your output and productivity was proportionate to that health.
Sure.
And our business suffered. It makes sense for me as a businessman to go help you get healthier.
Yeah, for sure.
Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And to support that growth, because it has a proportionate output, which means, our business is running incredible right now, better than it ever has.
Yeah.
Would you attribute some of that to your own health as a leader?
Sure. Yeah, without
100%. You shoulder the burden of 100 to 200 people at this company.
Yep.
You're definitely going to have the energy to lead.
Yeah, man.
And you cannot lead those if you can't lead yourself. And
Agreed.
If you're unhealthy, you're not a leader.
Agreed. And it, to even make it on a more personal note, right? if we're being honest, after we did that and you guys did give me some tools, and to your guys' credit, you threw the kitchen sink at me, you know what I mean, of different ways to try and improve my health. And, but as you know, old habits die hard,
Talk us
and
through that. What does that mean?
well, what I mean,
Because it's human nature, but I want you to explain what it means.
Well, it's human nature, especially with all of the technology and everything we do have at our fingertips today. Comfort's addicting,
It's the most addictive thing on earth.
And it's much easier to sit around and do nothing. And, it's much easier to grab the potato chips out of the cabinet or whatever, right?
Skip that walk, skip that workout. I'll do it tomorrow.
It's just convenient. You know what I mean? And, everyone has this excuse, you got 4 kids, 4 different kids in sports. If you're like my kids and you're married to my wife, 4 different kids in 2 different sports at, any given time. Sure. And, then you add on to it family stuff. Then we're on the road 3 weeks a month usually, and, it's easy to just stay in your comfort routine. For me, I had battled with it for a couple years at that point. And I remember, being in bed and just telling my wife, like, God bless her, she had heard it from me a million times, but I'm like, this isn't how I want to live my life. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not.
Being unhealthy?
Well, but it's not just unhealthy, right? Like, was I unhealthy? Yes. I was also, showing my kids an unhealthy lifestyle. I was, not able to be productive at the level that I needed to be at work. Like, everyone thinks it's fun going and doing all this stuff and going to these conferences and being part of all that. And, sure, depending on how you do the conference, maybe it is. You know what I mean? Do we like to host parties and throw parties at a conference? 100%. But every 30 minutes of that day up until that happy hour has been mapped out where we're going from meeting to meeting or, lunch here, breakfast there. And like, we were talking about cans on the way over here and you're like, bro, the desserts, what I mean?
Yeah.
You didn't have a single bad one.
I had discipline, but before I got on a plane and went over to France, I was like, there's no governor on this, kid. I'm going to eat anything that is just put in front of me.
Yeah. But so, was I tired of being unhealthy? Yes. I was also tired of a lot of other things in my life. Do you know what I mean?
So let's talk about what you mean by that, right? Yep. Because you and I talked about that once. We said it. I can tell how much someone loves themselves by the way they take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think at the time, it wasn't that you were unhealthy physically. I think that you were unhealthy upstairs.
Oh, I was definitely unhealthy upstairs, but we can be honest, I was unhealthy physically.
But that's a byproduct.
Yeah, for sure.
Something else.
Yeah.
You didn't wake up like that over the course of time.
No, yeah.
So, as humans, we have to align our hearts, our minds, and our gut, right? And I think that you were definitely not aligned along those 3.
No.
And I think ultimately, what was it that triggered this? Because when we sent you back home, there was no external motivation. There wasn't anything. We weren't giving you affirmation or support either because you had to start feeding yourself.
Yeah. I think for me, and a lot of people may be like, man, can't believe he would say that. But like, for me, it was a selfish reason, right? And you and I have had this conversation a couple times. And one of the biggest things that people need to learn as they're going through something like this, whether it's the money you got to spend on it, the time you have to invest into it, regardless of what the excuse is, you do have to be selfish about your own health, mental health, things like that, because it's like the airplane analogy, right? Like, you can't help somebody else with their mask if you don't have your own mask on. You know what I mean? You're going to pass out first. I just wanted to be better at home. I have 4 kids that I care about deeply, as you know. I have a saint of a wife who puts up with me doing everything that we do. And, God bless my wife, she had tried multiple times, you know what I mean? And like she would go on this health kick and I would tell her I would do it and I'd do it for a week or whatever, you know what I mean? And then I'd quit. And then the selfish part about it is you also know that I have lofty goals, within our organization. And there's certain things that I want out of life, like I'm second generation out of a coal mine. Like I'm going to make it to where nobody else in my lineage ever goes back to that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And, I couldn't do those things without taking care, getting myself back to where I need to be first. You know what I mean? And, it's been a slow process. It's been a slow journey. Like it's not something that happens overnight. Yeah. And, I would even say, fully 100% pot committed, it's been a year. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
it did take you some time to turn on the
100%. And
because you didn't, that's what I'm trying to say. We sent you home with no external framework and motivation. So you had to light the fire within you. And it still took you a few months, even after like there's knowing the path and then walking the path. Yeah. Right. And you kind of knew the path, but it took you a lot of time on your own still to turn on.
Can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink.
What was it that finally got you to pull your head from your ass?
I think more than...
I say that with love.
No, yeah. Work, the work is a big part of it, just because, again, I have some pretty lofty goals for myself, and I correlate my success in business and what I'm able to provide to my family. Like to me, that correlates to success. Call it, like I was telling you, like if anybody's ever seen the movie Hillbilly Eulogy, the one about J.D. Vance, like that's 10 minutes from where I grew up, right? Like you make it a little bit more country, and that's where I grew up, the same time frame, everything. My dad, God rest his soul, was he had addiction problems and everything like that. And, he died in 2020, and, that had a profound impact on me as well. And here I am, I'm getting ready to turn 37. My oldest daughter is a senior, she's getting ready to be a senior. And, you do kind of look around and like, if I think about it, like, I remember when my dad was 37, you know what I mean? And so like, you start to think, are my kids, 30, less than 30 years from now, because my dad died at 62, going to have a conversation like, yeah, I remember when dad was 37, like that, you remember what he was doing. And you know what I mean? Cause like, you do remember that stuff as a kid. And that's not what I want my boys to remember, you know what I mean?
What did you want them to remember?
That's still being written, a lot of it, with what we're doing with Overwatch. And, but what I want them, more than what I want them to remember now, like what I want them to see now is, dad's put together. Dad is up before us every morning. Dad is, providing the way that we need to be provided for. And, my kids are still a little bit young, but one day I want them to be like, man, look at what Dad and Kirk and AG and everybody built. You know what I mean? Like that stuff's not easy, We've been very blessed and fortunate as a business, and we potentially have an opportunity that one day our children do get to be part of this stuff or part of this industry in some form, you know what I mean? And, like I told you the other day, like most people aren't remembered, and it's not that I want to be remembered or anything like that, but do I think it would be cool, 4 generations from now for somebody in my bloodline to be like, that's where it changed. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's where, my grandpa, my biological grandpa I never met, died when my dad was 17. My uncle died at 38. My dad died at 62. You know what I mean? Like the male side of my family doesn't live very long. Now, my mom's side's different. They all live to be about 100, but you get what I'm saying? Like I'd rather be here longer and get to be part of all this longer. And, you know, another aspect of it is, and I've shared this with you, like there are guys on our team right now that I've shared, you know, some of the wildest experiences a human can experience on this earth with them. And, you know, letting them down's not an option for me either. You know what I mean? So that, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is there was a combo of reasons that made me want to do things different and be better. I think you know me well enough to know, like, obviously my family is a big portion of that. I care very deeply, you know, about my family and their well-being. And dude, I don't know. Eventually you do just reach a point where, you know, you got to be happy, and I wasn't happy, and you know, there were a lot of things in my life that needed to change at the time.
Okay, so now we're getting to good stuff. I want to keep it on the personal side just a little bit longer. Yeah. And then people that are listening, I think it's important because we talk about so much shit, but people don't talk about their struggles out loud. You know, unfortunately, we don't unpackage and learn from each other well when so many people are suffering. Quiet desperation and silence somewhere. They're unhappy with the circumstances of what they're doing at home. Like, if you're listening right now, there's a chance that you're either unhappy with your circumstances as an individual person, and it's not uncommon for married people to wish they were single or single people to wish they were married. It's just part of human nature, but you're struggling on a personal level of some capacity, and if not, then you're struggling at work at some capacity or in some other third option that is whatever, but it's no one's really in full harmony and balance at all the times because life comes in these cycles, right? So there are people that are listening, and they should know, like, I had a conversation today with your assistant, who I don't get a chance to run into her very often. And I was like, hey, just by the way, like, how you doing? And I don't get to talk to her very often, right? So she's like, I'm doing great, right? I'm like, that's amazing because you're the only one that probably is. She's like, what are you talking about? I go, let me tell you, man, we move at an altitude and airspeed that we're trying to grow a technology incubator for labor at the speed and pace of the industry itself. Yeah. And reinventing yourself that often is not for everybody. This level of effort that we have to operate at to maintain our position, that's not for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
The level of excellence that we expect from each other, that's not for everybody. Right. So when I asked her, I said, how you doing? She's like, good. I'm like, listen, there's two types of people in this world. Those that are going to tell you that those that are struggling, right? They're truly struggling. And those that are going to lie about it, pretend they're not. Yeah. Right. But we're all struggling to something. If it's this, we're all born short of something. And I just said to her, I said, hey man, that's amazing for you, because I don't get to say that. I said, I'm almost always overwhelmed, exhausted, stressed out, worried about something. I feel like I'm not getting it done. And about once a month, I'm in a fetal position. And she looked at me and cocked her head and I said, oh yeah, you think that's no different for these other people? Like, some may say I have unrealistic expectations of you. I don't think so. You may think that, but
I cannot confirm nor deny.
Right, but I'm going to push you
the fifth.
Because of our addictions to comfort. Yeah, mean that I'm going to push us outside of that. We're building battleships; those don't get moored to the pier. We're out in harm's way building a business, right? Oh, and I just remember looking at her. She looked me back, and she was really surprised. I'm like, you don't have to be okay. None of us are. We're all struggling. Struggle with your teammates. Talk to them if you get overwhelmed, because there's days you're going to need each other as a crutch to get through this. The soloists, I mean, I see companies out there that do what we do, and they have soloists as leaders, but teams will always beat soloists, right? So I try to tell people, stay off the island and join the community of those that are all suffering, because we're all suffering together. We could grow from each other together, right? For you, there was a time where, again, on the personal side, we're going to tie it back to the professional side, because I wanted to humanize the challenges that are normal for every one of us as part of human nature, so that everybody else can be like, man, I'm not the only one. Because some people are just like, fuck, am I the only one struggling? The answer is no. You're just the only one that probably has the courage to talk about it out loud. Sure. Everybody's struggling at something. But I do think a lot of us have the ability to help each other through. I think it's fulfilling for us professionally as teammates. There's nothing more rewarding than helping someone else, right? Yeah. So my thing is, we gave you an incubator to where you can grow, and we gave you a jump start on that, and we gave you some things. You still couldn't be motivated until you got sick of your own shit, and selfishly, you felt like maybe you needed to perform at a higher level, and whatever it was, it triggered something inside of you.
Yeah.
And it was probably triggered by your ambition and the need to protect and fulfill what you have to do as a provider for your family.
Yeah, for sure.
But it had a huge ripple effect. Like, as an example, like you sent me a note like 3 weeks ago, your daughter did her first 5K or something.
She
like
did, yeah. Girls on the Run.
But what I'm saying is, like, would she have done that prior to that?
I think that my wife, because like, listen, I've had a great transformation and everything like that. My wife's has been even crazier than mine. You know what I mean?
So the impact of your transformation has had an impact on your wife and your kids.
Yeah. I mean, like, listen, I would say my wife probably motivated me more so than I motivated her.
Sure.
Right. Like, and she did a lot for me. But I think that I think what you mean and what is true is you have to lead by some type of example for your family. And like, especially with my boys, you know, like I would never take credit for Emma doing that on the run thing. My wife has had a deep impact on my girls. And, but I do think that like with my boys, like with Landon, as an example, my oldest son, you've never met a kid that talks more about wanting to be great and wanting to be this and that. And, you know, he puts in a lot of work and he was, but he also, you know, always kind of had, you know, had an excuse, didn't want to do this,
Human
didn't want to
nature.
do that. And well, like, and, you know, where you think he's getting that from?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And, now, you know, like he's excited about going to his training and he does more training than I do. You know what I mean? By far, you know, he sees a private personal trainer a couple times a week. He goes, you know, super fortunate being a football coach and having, you know, some of my real close friends are football coaches too, and working with their kids. And, you know, he is putting in a ridiculous amount of work. My daughter, Emma, that did the 5K, I mean, she's doing a 5K, plays on 2 different softball teams, just started with a summer league basketball team, and she's on swim team. You know what I mean? And you know, my oldest, Kaylee, is the same way. You know, she's an academic.
You and your missus were always athletic. It seems like
we
you guys
were
very competitive too.
We were, but you know, me and her were also both. I will not say this about my wife. I'll say this about myself. I was a big old fat fucking slob. You know what I'm saying? Like I just was. You know, and you know, if I show people a picture of me now, like I've shown a couple people that picture that I sent you, and they're like, that's not you. You know what I mean? Like that's not real. And I'm like, at 100% is fucking real. You know what I mean? You just don't realize it when you're in that situation. You don't.
You look amazing. Since you've been here, probably everyone's also told you that, but like, you don't have to share your metrics if you don't want to, but you're back at like the weight you were at when you were in the military, probably.
Yeah,
right?
I don't care. I was literally blurring the lines of 300 pounds, and I was 222 before I came here.
So about, I mean, like, that's not a diet, that's a lifestyle change. And this lifestyle change really had a profound impact probably on the rest of the family. It tends to have a ripple effect on those that we love and that are closest to us, especially if you're, you know, the patriarch of your family. And it's good. I know that I know Miss Kelsey, so I know that she's a dog. She's an athlete, and she could probably tear you up in anything.
Oh, she's better than me for sure.
But showing your kids that lifestyle and watching your kids see you stay fit and see them, that should have a pretty big impact on those generational curses that the Sargents were trying to talk about, right?
Oh yeah, and you know, kids are brutally honest, you know what I mean? And like, and it's funny because even though she was 17, like Kaylee, I don't know, it was a certain amount of months in, you know what I mean? She gives me a hug and she's like, oh, I can get my arms around you.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? And you're like, oh, okay, cool, thanks. You know?
But the cool thing is, did you see any patterns? Let me ask you this. What was the thing that you were noticing the most? Because no one wants this. Like, everybody that's listening right now knows there's something that they need to go fix, but they're not fed up with their own bullshit yet. So they're waiting to hit that rock bottom before they change.
For me, there was a lot of things. The largest one for me by far is the amount of pain in my body. And what I mean by that is, I'm telling you right now, if you've ever been a combat arms, if you've ever played football, if you've ever, like, any sport, anything, you know what I mean? Just over the course of our lives, we beat our bodies up. You know, number one, if I ever got a cold or, you know, something like that, some type of virus, I had full blown man flu, right? Like joints swelling up. Like I was miserable. Like I would hurt. I would wake up every single morning of my life that I woke up, my shoulder hurt, my hip hurt, and my back hurt. It was just a part of my life. And I just assumed, well, I didn't assume, you know what I mean? Like when you get into the like that comfort zone and you're making comfort decisions and things like that, you also make a lot of excuses, right? Like, I have had a relatively hard life and done some awesome and crazy things. You know what I mean? Your body gets beat up. Our human bodies are not meant to do those things. You know what I mean? But, that was always my excuse, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is,
wear and tear.
Yeah. And, but the thing that I notice the most now every day, I mean, I am not in pain. I'm not at all. Do I still hurt and have aches and stuff every once in a while? 100%. It is not anything I would ever put a pill in my body over. You know what I mean? And like, you know, we've talked about this too, like, and I'll get into it as we go on, but like, I did get super interested and addicted to finding out, you know, what this peptide did or what, just different things that I could do with my body.
Your body is a machine. You start playing with it.
Yeah. And I'm here to tell you, like, it's real. You know what I mean? Like, there are some of these peptides and stuff you can take that do exactly what they say they do. But, you know, going back, you know, the pain in my body, my sleep, how much better I sleep. I don't snore anymore. Like, there's a lot of things like that. And then I did start to notice differences at work and things like that. And my ability to, you know, hang out longer, do things longer. Like, I'm here to tell you, if you sweat when you eat a steak meal, there's something wrong. You know,
you should be the salad.
Not normal. You know what I mean? But like, you know, that I was like that. You know what I mean?
You just get used to it.
Oh yeah. And, you know, those things aren't normal and you shouldn't be doing that. But there's so many different things in my life that changed and I noticed different, and those things then start to become addicting and things like that. And it is about, everyone wants to try and set a routine and be like, I got to stay to this schedule, or I got to hit this weight, or I got to do this, or I got to do that. Life is hard. Things are going to happen. Your schedule's never going to always work out, at least not doing what we do. Your schedule's never always going to work out. And it's important to set goals. At least for me, it was important not to have it be about a number or something like that. Like you said, it was about
a lifestyle change.
I just wanted to change my life. I wanted to do things differently. I wanted to feel better. I wanted to look better, everything. And, you know, when I really started to notice it, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, is when we got those poker chips and we scanned mine. And I was like, bro, it looks like this is my headshot from Fat Camp.
Every time that we started doing new Sims and stuff like that, you would be like, don't use that photo.
Yeah, like change that photo.
And I was like, not a chance. I'm going to keep that photo here until you keep going.
And you start to see it and you start to notice it, and those things become addicting and you want to look better. And one thing that I did realize is I have to look better sitting in a meeting than I did a year ago. You know what I mean? And I found myself more engaged with my team, you know, getting more involved with the things that they were doing, not as stressed out about things. I think I had a super high cortisol level. You know, like if I could go back and there be something specifically that I was going to test, I would have wanted to know what my cortisol level was then versus what it is now. But, there's just no way for me to describe all the things that changed. I couldn't tell you the last time that I had a cold or didn't feel good or anything like that. Like it's been at least a year. Like I can't think of anything like that. And, now I did also, as you know, make the personal decision not to drink and things like that.
What a difference that makes.
Oh, insane. And like, I'm not saying I drank a lot before,
You'll drink every now and then now.
According to a doctor, yes, I probably drank too much, you know what I mean? But according to this industry, I was all right.
Yes.
But I made the personal decision not to do that. I did have a couple drinks, as you know, for the first time the other night. And I don't know, like, sure, it was all right. You know what I mean?
Actually, statistically, you could track it. I mean, when we were kids, you're a millennial, I'm an X, you got to stay away from weed and THC, and you definitely got to stay away from mushrooms, psilocybin, because those things are horrible for you. But just play with alcohol. Just go as much of as you want. Beer, liquor, whatever you want.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about when we were kids?
Yeah. 100%. Now, the whole model, like right now, you're watching like Gen X is drinking 1/10 of the amount of alcohol that Gen Xers did, right? Because we're just realizing, like, why are we doing this to ourselves? And there's other options and there's other alternatives. But I think that a lot of people just have a habit where they come home and they crack a beer, have a drink, or, hey, I can't go. It's hard, man. I go to conferences all the time too. I'm not going to always be dry at those things. It depends on my morning the next day. If I don't have some in the morning the next day, then that's my one time to go eat that dessert or go get a little bit later in the paint. But at the most part, like, I don't need to be drinking every day at these conferences. And a lot of people just go to these things and they get a bunch of hangovers and a bunch of stack of business cards. And I mean, half these conferences are freaking jokes anyways. They're award ceremonies. They invite all these people to come get awards and everyone else shows up to lick each other's ice creams. That's all that's going on at these conferences is hangovers, award shows, and business cards. We try to create a conference that allows people, we don't build networks anymore. That's what technology is for. We only build relationships. Our conference is designed to build a relationship. Right?
Yeah, you can still get a hangover there if you want. You know what I mean? But
by design,
it's up to you.
You could also get an IV drag
the next day.
Exactly. If I'm going to take you hard or deep in the paint, I'm going to also
we'll fix you up the next morning.
Look, we still got to put out and produce. But I'm saying the lifestyle is alcohol. I don't think was designed for us to plow through every day like that. I think it's supposed to have these moments that are supposed to be good to celebrate. But going back to you, like, listen, man. I want to take it full circle that are people that are listening. I've known you forever, since you've been in this game, 11 years maybe now. Yeah, okay. And we've worked together in a few different organizations, and I've seen you at your best and your worst, and I've seen you at your worst. And worst was when you were here with us, building the best thing that we've ever built. Yeah. And it's really hard. A lot of us people that are working here, there's a lot of companies, there's people that are listening that work for big box companies, and they can't relate to this because they're just a part of the cog, maybe of their business, and they don't have a tribe or a team within that shit. They're just there to contribute sometimes. And there are other companies that are listening that are like ours, that are smaller or medium-sized businesses that they still rely heavily on culture, right? And that culture is what feeds the strength of the team, right? And those people, they don't maybe know how to help people. People that are listening that are struggling don't know how to ask for help. And the truth is like, I think that if you're struggling, assume that the next person is too. And if you want to figure out how to get help, go help someone else first. Yeah. Right. So for us, I was going through and looking at you're one of the greatest resources to this company. We couldn't have started this company without you. And at the same time, because of the circumstances of your life, maybe the father passing or a lot of dominoes that fell, there was enough to make it to where the amount of output we were getting wasn't proportionate to what you were capable of.
Sure.
And I think what the difference is between a strong cultured business and a business that maybe just focused on the bottom line is, instead of just ripping out and replacing a piece of a machine that's not working, we're going to go fix that piece of the machine and put it back into the system because it's going to work better. Yeah. And then that teaches us how to go fix the other machines. And that little piece of that machine may go fix some of the other ones on our behalf. We may not even know about these challenges because now we're building people that are solving problems beyond our reach, or beyond our visibility. And and we sent you home to go fix yourself. And what people that are listening may not understand is it took you 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
You did not come out of the gates after that. You got a whip start, a new start, you got this and that, and then we got sent home with the recipe and all the ingredients, and you couldn't cook shit to save your life. You were just maintaining the minimum amount we needed before I wanted to put a bullet in your head.
Yep.
And then at the end of the day, for your own reasons, you discovered your purpose and you discovered a reason why you were going to turn something on. People here that are listening should realize some of them are going to be in one of these stages.
Yeah.
And in what stage you're in, just realize it's a predictable pattern.
For sure.
But once they find that, then it's never too late to turn that on. You started just ripping and turning.
Yeah.
And right. And we just kept pushing like, it's good to do it for a week. Do it for 2 weeks. Oh yeah. String together 4 now. And then next thing you know, you're patching together and stringing together months. And that, I think, is the addiction. You know, it's being around others that have that addiction. That's where it becomes infectious.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And look, you're going to grow. We grew through tons of people here that fell at the back of that Peloton because they just weren't addicted to that level of growth.
Yeah.
Right. You were holding on and then you turned it on and then you saw it first. We saw it first. What allowed you to take those lessons home? We saw that it de-escalated. Like if you had a bad weekend at home because you have 4 kids and 3 sports and a wife that doesn't take no shit from you, you came into work on Monday and you were a bull in a china shop. We dealt with that. We endured that, right? Because it's impossible for people with our level of passion to not bring those things everywhere we go.
Yeah, and I think it was, like looking back, I think what it was, especially like with maybe the bull in a china shop on a Monday type deal, right, is when you're in a certain position and you go home and you can't effectively drive change or have leadership at home, you know what I mean? Probably chomping at the fucking bit on Monday to,
go be a leader again.
You know what I mean? Like go chew some shit up.
Yeah, you're not in charge at home.
But that's not a healthy way to do it. Yeah. And that's not an appropriate way to go about it or anything like that. But
well, we saw it.
Yeah, sure.
What happened is when you started changing, the way that we felt it was first, you had to change it. The safest place for you will always be home. The safest place for any of us is always home, wherever home is.
Yeah.
My thing is once you found that balance because you became a better father, look, it's important for people to remember, anybody listening, man or woman, we were first sons and daughters before we became husbands or wives or before we became moms or fathers. Like we had to start with ourselves, right? So once you went home and we were like, dude, get your shit right, get you right. You started having this really great thing and it started having an impact, I think, on everyone around you at home. Do you agree?
Yeah.
And that healthier balance that you were able to achieve at home sent you back to work on Monday with not the bull in the china shop, but you were so charged and ready to go that you could carry the burden of anything, right?
Oh, yeah. Like you definitely, like I said, are more energized, more clear, more everything. But I also, think it brings you back to there's different types of comfort. Do you know what I mean? And what I mean by that is like there's negative comforts that keep you in a bad place and make you, do whatever. But then there's like you can also find comfort in showing up to work prepared and ready and you've already done something hard that day. Like
there's fulfillment and satisfaction in that.
Yeah.
That's not comfort though.
Well,
accomplishment.
Yeah, there you go.
You feel like you've achieved something.
Yeah.
That it makes all the pain and suffering worth it.
Yeah. And it makes it doing something you don't want to do to start your day does tend to make the rest of your day easier. You know what I mean? Or you have more energy, you have everything. And like, make no mistake, along the year, there's been multiple times where you can fall right back into whatever routines you've ever, you know what I mean? Like it's super easy to fall right back into it. I used to have people tell me this and I was always like, what the fuck ever, you know what I mean? But it is just a decision. Do you know what I mean? What I mean by that? Like the hardest part about anything is just making the decision.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get up at 5:30 and go to the gym with you and Joe. You know what I mean? Like nobody does.
I
Anybody
didn't want to be there.
Anybody that tells themselves, I'm so excited to get up at 5:30 and go do X.
I don't even try to go to the gym.
Shit.
I just try to get in the car.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I get in the car, I know I get to the gym. I just got to get in the car.
But we went. I was glad to be there. You feel better afterwards. And it is what it is. You know?
Your output and productivity is higher when you physically challenged yourself, cardio-wise as well. That's a whole nother podcast that we'll do eventually I'll bring on these bioengineers that we have in our orbit that are going to just tell you all the science, between doing this and, cortisol, spraying magnesium on your feet. Like all the things that you're going to do, you have to make those decisions to want to look at yourself as a machine and try to figure out how to improve the machine. How do we upgrade the machine that's us?
Yeah. The thing is, though, like, you do have to be invested in it. You know what I mean? Like you do, like, and I'll be the first to tell you, if you're sitting here saying, oh, I'm ready and I want to do this and this and that, but then you go and sit down and get a soda and drink it, you're not fucking ready.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, for me, that was a big one. You know what I mean? Quitting pop. Like, well, and I would always be like, it's Coke Zero. You know what I mean? Like, and people don't realize that, like, the artificial sweeteners and stuff that they put in that are worse for you than if you just got the real thing that's made with real sugar.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And there's just all sorts of things like that I had to change and do different. And yeah, it had a profound impact at home and in my professional life.
So we have to change us, is what I was trying to say.
Yes.
Whether home is just me by myself, I could be 24 years old in this industry, just started, been in this industry for a whole year. Hopefully by then I've discovered that I could sink my entire career in this industry that's emerged. For those that are listening, what you need to understand that what 2025 is for AI is what 1925 was for the automobile industry. And people don't realize that we were still building Model Ts until 27. Yeah. So we are in our infancy, which means this industry will emerge. There was a time where we discovered power flight during the Second Industrial Revolution. And when they did that, do you think they ever assumed that it'd have the impact on humanity that it does today? Try to imagine the world without planes.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to one day look at AI the same way, but we're going to call it, the industry is mission critical. The product is a data center, and we already are in this industry that's 50 years old, and it's just about ready to emerge onto the mainstream, which means all of your kids, all of my kids are going to be working in this industry, and most likely the job they have will have not been invented yet. Yeah. So there's so many things that this industry is going to do. By then, hopefully what we've done is taught the industry that you cannot rip out and replace humans in this space fast enough. This industry is out of talent. Everybody that has experience. So now it's about finding the people that we have and getting the highest level of output and productivity that we can from them, and then simultaneously building fresh prospects, because the industry's got 100 times demand rate that we have, and we're already out of talent. And that talent is not here to build power plants.
Well, and I mean, think about it too. The crazy thing is like, we've been talking about a labor shortage in the industry for at least the last 5 years, right? Like,
at least.
Okay.
And we're seeing it.
But what's crazy
all the slowdown is
we've been talking about that we have a labor shortage even before we knew what AI was going to be, what it would take to deploy it, all that stuff. And so now, so we were talking about having labor shortages when we were building 50, 100 megawatt,
now we're doing multiple gigawatts.
You get what I'm saying? And so, like, when you think about that, it's insane. And, you go on to some of these projects now and, there was a point in time, if you had 700 contractors on your project, that was a big project. You know what I mean? Now you got 7,000 contractors on some programs. You know what I mean? And
but it's this industry. These programs that we're talking about are the programs that build back the middle class in the United States.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
all the jobs that don't need a college degree.
I don't have a college degree.
There you go.
In my humble opinion, some of the best people that work in this industry don't have college degrees. You know what I mean?
My closest friends haven't stepped foot on a college campus, and they're crushing it in this space.
100%. And I think that is because, and you can we could tie this all back into, being healthy and it is super sad to say, but if you are even slightly a savage, you know what I mean?
You have an advantage.
You could write your own ticket in this industry.
Well, I always, the common theme, I think all of our parents or grandparents have said the same thing to us at some course over the time. You don't have to be the biggest, the fastest, the strongest, or the smartest. You just have to work the hardest. This industry really lends itself to people that have the ability to work hard and reinvent themselves. Some people will work on a problem just long enough to find a solution. As soon as they do, they go to race to implement it. Those that are willing to work harder are going to sit there and pick and chip away at that solution and just braze it down, fine it down until where it's beautiful and simple and easy to understand. And that's what we need, is people willing to work hard mentally. The reason why, we're talking about the transformational shape that you did your body is because I told you I don't know a way to demonstrate your discipline and your ability to show that you could do something consistently than going and taking care of your body, because that's something that takes work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. It takes discipline and it takes consistency. And what that does is it tells us what your mind is made of, right? So for us, we're not running around looking at people based on how hard or how soft they are. We look at them based on how much do they care about themselves, because they could demonstrate that in the way they present themselves.
Yeah.
Like if they're not going to give themselves 100%, are they going to give it to the team? Are they going to give it to the company? Are they going to give it to our client? So we have to figure out, like, how do we take the most kinetic, most ballistic, most potentially riskful resource that is involved in the development and building of any of these data centers. It's not the engines, it's not the power stations, it's the human.
Yeah.
Right? So for you and me, we're bringing it back to the human side on a professional basis. So people understood, like, hey, first of all, let's be honest with ourselves. We lie to ourselves all the time. Right? One of my mentors was just telling me, he's like, Kirk, you can't trust yourself. Stop making those decisions. Stop trusting yourself. And I mean, like, he's absolutely right. I was like, damn, I need to stop thinking that I have the answers and I need to go find me other people to have some of these answers for me. I can't trust myself because I'll lie to myself. It's part of human nature. All of us will lie to ourselves. So we have to have someone that speaks truth, right? And it starts with us trying to figure out, hey, do I have a problem? Where am I struggling at? Is it at work? Is it at home? Is it both places? And 99.999% of the time, the problem is you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Mountain's you.
The mountain is you. What do people mean by that's a book, but
yeah,
explain the book that.
Well, basically, I mean, to boil it down real simply, like all the things that you want or all the things that you want to be, you want to do, anything like that. Literally the only thing stopping you is yourself.
Yeah, the mountain is you, right?
Like,
great book, by the way.
Yeah.
Hard book. Get an audiobook version of it. Listen to it while you drive.
I stole meditations from you because now.
Incredible book.
Well, like, and I think there's levels, right? Like you say it all the time, like people, and it's true, regardless, however your brain works, if you think about it from a perspective of there's different levels to everything, like, now that I can, do certain things and I do feel better and I want to be this or I want to be that. Yeah. Now I want to know how fucking Julius Caesar, led that empire. Right. and, like,
not lead it like Nero did.
Yeah. But you do become addicted to wanting to change and do different.
Marcus Aurelius wrote a book called Manifestations, right? And
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I said Julius Caesar. Yeah,
I hear you. But people ought to be. Well, what they're taking from that is even an infantry guy could get a book that's not a coloring book, right?
I didn't say I could read. I just took the book. I can have somebody read it to me.
We have to be feeding ourselves a steady diet of stuff like that at all times. Hopefully, there's people that are listening to this podcast that are taking some notes from this, and there's something that's relatable to everybody. Because at some point, just like a business has 5 stages. It's very simple. If you look at the patterns on everything that we're doing, you could break it into stages. Even us, is the way that we develop. The industry is broken into 5 stages. The way a business is broken into 5 stages. We are in 5 stages. I'm not going to educate people on all those things. There's books out there and there's shit that they could understand. They should be trying to scratch the paint and understand those things. But for us, I wanted people listening that are in this industry to realize that there's others that are struggling.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, so that everyone understands, what we're talking about here was your individual, like, personality and where you stood as a human being. From a work perspective, even your worst was still higher than most other companies have their best players operating at.
Yeah.
You were running at a C level at moments for us, but I could have put you at any other group and you'd still be operating at A, which means that they're going to tolerate that.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, he's still better than everyone else here. And we weren't measuring you against everyone else here. We were measuring you against you.
Yeah.
The only competition you have is you.
Yep.
And the only thing I want to compare you to is the future version of yourself, which is relative to your potential.
Yep.
And you and I both knew that what you were giving me wasn't that.
Yeah. And it's easy, especially in my position, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you could have hidden.
Being a co-founder and everything like that, like, it's easy to, fall into the, all right, well,
Blame it on others.
Yeah,
it's not my fault.
Or I'm, like you said, like, it is very easy to sit and say and judge yourself based off of everybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude, there was times you used to look at me and you're like, why are you still dogging my ass? I am outperforming every one of these. And I was like, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're still only operating at a C level for you. But now look what happened when you started punching through. And next thing you know, you're running at a B level and we saw it and you saw it and you're like, holy shit. And then once you got to that next altitude and airspeed, then you look down and you're like, I wish I just got here 6 months sooner.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. You're going to look back and be like, man,
right.
What an ass.
But it's okay because you don't own the market on that.
No.
And we all do that.
Well, and it does honestly come down to being honest with yourself first too. You know what I mean? Like if
in what way?
Meaning like if you're not willing to admit there's a problem, then you're not gonna fix said problem, right? And what I mean by that is like, and because you went through it with me, like you just said, there were times where you and me would go head to head and I'd be like, I don't fucking understand the problem. You know what I mean? And what I mean is like, at the end of the day though,
I'm better than everyone else here. And I'm like, that's shit.
But that was just that, again, talking about making excuses and things like that. And, when you really look at it, I could go work multiple places in this industry and I could go do multiple different things and
I get paid better.
But that's not what I want. Do you know what I mean? Like I enjoy being able to say that I'm a co-founder here and that, this is my baby and like, not that it's not everybody's, you know what I mean? That's not what I mean. But I don't think there's many times in your life that you get opportunities like that. You know what I mean? And as a lot of people in this space do, as I know you have, I've missed countless sporting events. I've missed, I can't begin to tell you the amount of things I have missed at home, sacrificing for this industry and my career and everything like that. Man, shame on me if I don't make it the best that I can, knowing that I sacrificed those things to one day be able to give, my family and my lineage something different. I can't in one breath say that I'm willing to sacrifice all those things and then in the next not be willing to be the absolute best that I can be at what I'm trying to do.
And that was it. You're like, I'll do anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, not anything.
Yeah, exactly.
What I need for you to do is I needed to give you, all I wanted was for you to give yourself 100%.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
Because I never gave you like, I need you to reach this goal. I need you to be able to do these things. I just said, when you can give yourself 100%, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the ask. And that should be the ask that all of us leaders give to the people that are within our charge. I think it's our duty and our responsibility to not tolerate anything less than what they are capable of giving us. Because I think that we individually are the most fulfilled by what we do when we know that we've done something great.
I agree with you, but I think the secret to being a great leader is knowing where that ends for everybody. Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like, what I mean by that is your 100% might be different than my 100%. And somebody on my team's 100% might be different than my 100%, than theirs. doesn't make them a bad person, doesn't make them a bad team member. You know what I mean?
As long as they're giving me 100%, they're the best team member I could ask for.
Exactly. And a good leader has the ability to identify what that person's 100% is and manage them to that. You know what I mean? How many people there are? I think, in my humble opinion, I think we have one of the best teams in the industry, if not the best team in the industry. And I would
it's taken a lot of growth.
It has, and I would put them up against anybody. But this is what I'll say: like, there's obviously team members on any team that are at different levels.
Yeah, but I got you.
You were willing to do it with me. And this goes to what you were talking about with organizations need to stop just ripping people out and replacing them. And
need to start investing into them.
Invest into them and give them an opportunity to be successful.
Right.
If nothing builds confidence and self-esteem faster than showing somebody that they can do something. You know what I mean?
Or letting them prove it to themselves.
Exactly. And it's up to us as leaders to put them in a position and give them a task or something that they can succeed at, because that's just where their 100% is right now, whether it be because of where they're at in life, anything, you know what I mean? But you and I are super fortunate that you had been around me for, at that point, 8-9 years, and you were able to be a good leader and say, I know that's not your 100%. You know what I mean? And it's a hard pill to swallow when you're in that seat.
That's bullshit. Listen, you were born with talent. You had shitloads of it, and you got to ride on that talent up until the point where everyone else around you was talented too. And then finally you had to start working again. You didn't get to cruise on that God-gifted talent. At some point, I mean, a lot of people, we see kids struggle with it coming out of high school into college. They're so easy and might get through high school, they don't have to study, and they go to college. That shit is different. They have to study and they don't know how to suffer.
Yeah.
Right. So for you, we saw the changes in you based on the way you would report to duty, so to speak, because then you approached everything, including us, when you'd be frustrated. And then the way that you were growing and leading, you would take a different energy to the team. And it took time, man. I mean, like, listen, if you're one of my most senior people and you've been with me for 10 or 11 years, it took us a long time to have that final breakthrough with you to where you're able to see the parallels between what you're doing and how that directly has an impact on this business.
Yeah.
And we want to, as leaders, be able to help everybody understand how to connect what they're doing back to the impact of this business.
Agreed.
Right? So it takes hard work to do those things, and it takes a lot of discipline, and it takes we have huge goals. Our business has huge goals, and those huge goals require, or they demand, huge habits. Agreed. Incredible habits. And to maintain those habits, we just need a relentless and ridiculous amount of discipline. And sometimes we have to feed off each other for those things, because every day it's hard to get to the gym. It's easier when you have a workout buddy meeting you there every day, So the thing is we haven't got to the part of humanity to where, like, we're all able to go self-operate within ourselves. Like, we still need these teams. We need these tribes. We need these communities. But you need one that's healthy. Yeah. And you need one that's that you feel inspired in, you feel safe in, and you're fulfilled by what you're doing in, right? And if you don't have those three things, then your output and productivity is going to always be shit. And when you don't, what I've learned as a business leader now is, if I don't give my employees something to be inspired by, if we don't give our employees something to feel like an environment in which they feel safe, not from the threats and dangers of the construction, but of bullshit, politics, diplomacy. We don't have, our company's not an incubator for society's problems, so we don't tolerate all that bullshit that's going on. We're here to work and bring value to clients and to build careers for people, right? But if you look at all those things, like, there's a huge tidal shift that was taking place within us at the same time. Plus, the industry was reinventing itself. We were reinventing ourselves with it, and the labor force was shifting around us. I tell people, look at the industry like this. When we figured out that this cloud shit ain't going away, every data center operator worth its salt went out and land banked everything they could in this industry. Yep. All the good shit is land banked somewhere. And then what they did was, like, we got to get ahead on supply chain. So everyone started getting their supply chain shit. You and I were talking to a guy today where I was like, we're watching partners put down deposits in supply chains for Q3 of 2027, just production slots. So, you have, after phase 2, I said it was really just the supply chain. The VMI strategies were shifting. OFCI models were getting a little bit more compressed. And then once you had that, then you had companies like, shit, we're out of power. Let's go secure our PPAs. Let's go get all of our power aligned in whatever markets we're going to be in, and let's try to figure out how to future-proof that for a few years. The last thing that everyone figured out was labor.
Yep.
And that transcends inside the white space as well, through all the people of the ecosystem that need server storage, networking software, GPUs, CPUs, whatever. There's not enough of that shit either. Oh, by the way, we are massively constrained and delayed in energy. Again, there takes a labor force to build the current power plants that we have, converting coal power plants into something usable and putting, some sort of nuclear application online in the next 5 to 10.
Yeah, plus getting the transmission to the sites.
Well, if we can't self-generate in island mode, then we have to, you're right. So there's certain things that are taking place, and we were sitting here as a business watching the industry change, the inflection where everybody's racing to labor now. Right. Labor is the national security solution for the national security risks that exist around AI, because if we put together the best labor force, we could build the best power plants and energy solutions for AI's demand of energy. And we have the best working class, middle class, professional skills, traded craftsman type of labor force that could go on and build these things. And we don't have to go send them to college for 4 years before they come out and do this. They come do it right now.
Yeah.
Right. So we're creating so many jobs that labor is the only existential threat to this industry now. It used to be power too, but everyone land banked, everyone equipment banked, and everyone power banked. Now everyone's trying to stock the deck on labor, but now labor is changing. And not only that, but you have labor forces that have experience, but they don't have leadership. And those leaders don't know how to get a higher level of output and productivity from their teams. Right. I mean, I'm going to do a podcast with Sorelli to talk about Overwatch University, but for us, we have to practice what we espouse. I can't go to the market and say, hey, get more output out of your teams if we are just ripping out and replacing people here, bolting them on.
Right.
We do what we did for you, and you see us continuously do that downstream and hopefully permeate all the way down to the ranks. So even those that are working for this company today that haven't made it to a level which I engage with them on a frequent basis, they should know that as they grow, we're here to help grow their career.
100%.
What are you doing proactively about that based on the things that you've learned? How has it changed you?
Well, I mean, I started spending a lot more time, as you know, with our field team. And when I say field team, I have VPs and directors under me, and having engagement with them constantly. And it's not always just about work either. I mean, it can't always just be about work. I bet we spend the first 15 minutes of our Monday calls, everyone's always talking about what their kid did at, sports that weekend, or, I show them pictures of the fish I caught over that weekend or whatever. But you don't realize, when you're not healthy and you're not mentally strong and stuff like that, you don't have as many of those conversations, you know what I mean? And it's because if you have any excuse to get out of something, you get out of it. And if you have, I don't need to do that call this week or whatever, you name it. And, you talked about us as an organization going through all those changes. Well, I would even say take it a step farther and think about that. We were going through those changes while we were adding more people in a month than we added in the first 2 years as a company, you know what I mean? And that'll tell you, the direction the industry's going too, right? When we started doing this, there was a point in time where, if a company called you up and they needed 2 people at one time,
you're like, oh, hot damn.
Yeah, that's great. Now it's 20, 60, you know what I mean?
I was telling someone in Con, I was like, in the last 4 weeks, we've had 4 of our customers reach out, and each one of them had a requirement for no less than 20 at a time.
Yep.
And 2 of them had no less than 32 at a time, and they were looking for that labor in the next 4 months. Yep. There's a huge shift that's taking place right now in the data center mission critical industry with regards to labor.
Agreed.
Every conference I go to, I see a huge shift of people which logos they're wearing on their chests. And a lot of people are unhappy in the circumstances where they're at. So they're going to go change that. They're going to get a new job. Maybe someone will go get a divorce or someone will do this and that. But most people aren't stopping to fix themselves first.
Yeah.
Like whenever people call me and they're like, I'm going to do these big things. I'm like, before you do any of that shit, focus on you. Like it doesn't matter the environment you're in. What are you doing to be at 100%? Get yourself at 100%. Then you'll have a clear mind of thought to figure out what should you do. Because you're right. Maybe when you arrive to that point and you have a clearer thought, you're like, dude, I should have done this 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But most people just don't even start with themselves. Whenever there's a problem with their circumstances, they blame it on everything but themselves.
Yeah.
Where 99.999% of the time, it is them that has the ability to change something. That'll change their circumstances. Some people don't know how to do it. I don't know shit about that because we build a culture that's designed for people to come here that have the ability to teach us or to learn from us on how to evolve and adapt to the good and the bad that takes place in this industry. I want to... Look, I'm trying to explain to the people that are listening like why it matters listen to a podcast for data centers about human beings, because this industry is about us.
Yep.
Labor is the number one thing. We humans are defining the labor. The tail wags the dog when it comes to labor. And right now we have a lot of opportunity, so much opportunity that not only do we need more of us, we need the healthiest versions of us.
Yeah. Well, and I know you and Mike specifically are going to get into this in some podcasts with some other people, but like what the everyday person should know about this industry and should understand, because I hate to tell you, your media and the federal government doesn't always
all that
tell you,
propaganda's not good for you.
doesn't always tell you exactly like it is. Make no mistake, what we're doing right now with AI is the modern day arms race.
It's beyond that, actually. You know what? I'm so happy you said that, like that modern day arms race, because it is a cloud war that takes place.
It is.
But think of it like this. Every industrial revolution think about the Manhattan Project.
Yep.
This is the Manhattan Project of the fifth industrial revolution.
Great way to talk about, yeah. 100%.
Every industrial revolution has had a Manhattan Project thing that changed humanity.
Yep.
AI is the Manhattan Project of the fifth industrial revolution. We are living in, well, first of all, from an industry's perspective, try to imagine, like when I said what 2025 is for AI is what 1925 is for the automobile industry. It's probably worth mentioning that in 1925, Henry Ford and his peers that were building the automotive industry were all working within the industry still.
Yeah.
No different than us. So that's how early is the pioneers of this industry still work amongst us. Some of them operate at levels above an operating business because they are an investment strategic side and they're the ones pulling the strings. And then you have some that are been here since the beginning of the time and they're still the most relevant gangsters in this space, right? And it's not a huge industry. I mean, there's a lot of people, but there's really only so many people that actually define what the industry is doing. The law of diffusion of innovation really breaks down what these curves traditionally look like in any method of business. But this is an industry that is just based on humans right now. But we're so focused on AI and technology that we're not focused on getting the best out of, the tenets of human biology do not keep up with the advancements in technology. So we have to figure out a way to get us humans reset and caught back up to the demands of the labor force for the product that we're delivering today.
Yeah. And
it started with, for us, we're building businesses based on the future. You'll have Gen X and millennials running DCAC, not Gen X. You'll have millennials and Gen Z running DCAC. The future of our business will be ran by millennials one day when us Gen Xers are rolled out. You guys are
getting pretty gray.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you get your shit together, Jesse, which is what this podcast is about, then I can go be a shareholder. But the truth is that should be the focus of every business, is to grow left seat, right seat cockpit training and grow people through director level, the vice president level, the executive level, and into management, right? And we should be trying to do this. And we put a lot of pressure on you because we practice what we espouse. We do it to our own presidents here. We'll do it with our vice presidents here. We've done it with those guys, and we've definitely done it with directors here. And everyone else on the field side is working to get into those levels where we invest at the director level. What Sorelli is doing with Overwatch University and the leadership training, in addition to what he's doing with the partnership with EPI, anybody in this industry could send their labor to us to be trained on leadership and certified through the Talent War Group and trained on data centers certified through EPI. We started this. This is our dog food. We bought this for us. Then we started building it to where every employee that works for our company will be certified by EPI in the next 6 months. We're just rolling that stuff out. we are investing at every altitude and airspeed for the things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I want you now. And this is the part where like some of this I've been listening to you talk and I try to reconstruct it back into a way in which we're trying to make sure it's aligned to our first podcast. So people may just listen to this one, not the first one, and not understand how far you've come.
Yeah.
You are not even the same person.
Not at all.
You are not the same human being that sat here with me more than a year ago.
Yeah.
And the way that you reinvent yourself right now, it's really having a massive impact on the entire culture of our business. I think your team sees it. The people that work for you see it. And that's what really jumpstarts them, is because they see it within you. So you get to go push it downstream.
Sure.
Now, there's parts of this whole journey that you and I have never talked about.
Yeah.
Not because I don't care, but because it's not my journey, it's yours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have my own journey I'm on too, right? So for us though, I pushed you to change, or we pushed you to change, because I'm selfish as hell too. I have a business to run.
Yeah.
I have shareholders too.
Yeah.
And they expect and demand a lot of shit from me and from this business. So I have to go operate at a certain level. Selfishly, I needed you guys to be able to do the same thing.
Sure.
But it changes us in different ways. The way that I went through circumstances in my life led me to the optics and how I view my life are different for many reasons. My visit with mortality wasn't combat like yours. Mine was cancer.
Yeah.
Right. But it still stirs something and it
Sure.
turns something on. Right.
Yeah.
What are the greatest changes? So now, like, we're sitting here, what would you have been able to tell yourself in the first podcast that would have turned something on, and speak to it as though there's people that are listening? Pretend as though, speak in a way, and though someone that's listening could actually take this advice.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? What if I told you that there's someone listening that needs to hear what you have to say right now because they do?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
I would say there's no miracle drug, right? I know there's a lot of stuff put out there right now that's a miracle drug. There's no one thing that you can do that is going to change it all for you, right? Like, do I take some peptides and do they make me feel better? And 100%, right? But if I ate like shit, it wouldn't matter. If I was still pounding 12 sodas a day, it wouldn't matter. If I was still not getting up, making my body active, doing something, it wouldn't matter. For me, you also you have to be willing to be honest with yourself and accept where you're at, right? For me, that was very difficult, right? Because of, like we talked about, football, the Army, you name it, right? To accept that I was 35, 36 years old. I didn't need to be the man in the weight room anymore. I didn't need to be this. I didn't need to be that. That's super critical, because you actually do more damage to yourself, and you end up putting yourself in a position where you got to stop for a little while, right?
Let your body heal.
Yep. And, we talked about this on the car ride here, and I was talking about a routine and stuff, but you were right when you said it. Anybody can make a routine, but it takes discipline to stick to it, right? It's not as out of reach as you think it is, right? Is I guess what I would want to tell myself then. And what I mean by that is, like, there were a lot of times that I would start doing this, or I would, and there is a voice in the back of your head that's like, you're too far gone, bro. You know what I mean? Like, you're this or you're that.
Was that me, or was that your voice?
No, mine. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm kidding.
Your voice was in my ass telling me to get my shit together. But it's when you get into those situations, or you're that big, or you're this or you're that, you start to self-doubt yourself. You start to do a lot of different things. And what I would tell you, and what I would want even old me to take away, and everyone listening to take away, is, let me give you my list of excuses, right? I have 4 kids, all in multiple sports. I have a wife that, like you said, does not take any shit. We were running a business that was growing faster than I think we had even thought it would, and was growing at a great rate. And, because I was lazy, because I was never around, because I was doing X, Y, or Z, like, didn't necessarily have an ideal relationship with my wife, right? Plus, we're traveling 3 out of the 4 weeks of a month, right? probably sounds like a lot of people, I would imagine, in the industry and listening, and like that, those ruts you get in life, like that's one of them. Every single one of those things in my life has gotten exponentially better since just having the discipline to be a little consistent, do a little bit more each day, not go into it trying to kill myself. Like, what I would tell me back then is like 1 year. 1 year and all of these things can be exponentially better. Like, you talk about, everyone says they're willing to do anything, right? Like, I think if you sat down with most people and you asked them, the 4 things that bring the most stress in their life, and you said, I guarantee you, if you do this just for a year, all those things are going to be exponentially better. I think majority of people would say, well, I'll do anything to get to that point. It just takes a little bit of discipline, and it takes a little bit of, you got to get to a point where you start believing in yourself again, and having a little bit more confidence, and you be shocked how quick those things come back. You know what I mean? Like, I look at pictures from then versus now, and like, I genuinely feel better about myself, and I feel better in clothes. I feel better being out somewhere with my wife. I feel better being at my kids' sporting events and being around other people. Like,
you want new headshots.
Yeah. But like, my boys always have kids over or their friends over and stuff like that. And there's one little kid that my youngest son Zane hangs out with, and his name's Troy. And I shit you not, this kid legitimately believes that I'm the strongest person on the face of the earth. You know what I mean? Like, he thinks that I'm Thor. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It feels good to feel more like that than what I did a year ago. You know what I mean?
As a dude,
yeah. You know what I mean?
We all want to feel like Thor.
100%. And I'm not saying I'm Thor, you know what I mean? I don't feel that way. I don't try and be that by
it's your
any
new call
means.
sign.
But when you sit around and you think about, like, I am involved in a lot of my kids' sports and this and that, and I don't know every kid's situation. And, I know Troy's family, and he has a great situation. But how many other 7-year-olds look at me and think those kind of things? How many of Landon's friends look at me and think those kinds of things? And, as a dad, a year ago, I 100% did not look anything like, I was Fat Thor.
Fat Thor, that's right.
But I want my boys' friends to feel that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you
and
want them to be proud of you.
Want, my 17-year-old daughter, dates a kid that is built like a brick shit house. You know what I mean?
He's got to be scared of you still.
You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, listen,
you ain't scared of me, but
that, I'll still smack the shit out of you. You know what I'm saying? But now, like, I don't know. Yeah, it just improves everything in your life. There's no way to explain it. Me and, my wife may disagree, but like, I feel like our marriage is better than it's ever been. You know what I mean? And part of that is we've known each other since 5th grade. Like, we know how to piss each other off real good. You know what I'm saying? Like, you learn that over time. But also, like, she never gave up on me either. You know what I mean? And she saw me at my worst, and, she deserves the best that I can do and produce. 100%. And she sacrifices a lot to be a stay-at-home mom and be at every single one of our kids' sporting events and all those things. And just as much as I want to owe it to my kids to reach a certain level in life, like, I owe it to my wife, who sacrificed her life to raise my kids and, make sure my kids are doing all these great things. And
they deserve to have you around for a bit.
Exactly. Yeah. And it there's just so many things like that change in your life that you feel better about. And there's no way to put a scale on it, But
that's what I wanted, like, for people listening. this has nothing to do with building a bigger data center.
Not at all.
We had to pause because you could build anything.
Yeah.
Your teams could build anything. You're building an incredible workforce. My thing is, you had to build you.
Yeah.
So for us professionals, everybody that's listening has to pause and ask themselves, what are they doing to build themselves? Yeah. You know, what are they doing to be a better version of themselves? And sometimes they're like, I'm going to get a certification, or I'm going to do this and that. I'm like, start with getting yourself to 100%.
Yeah.
Like I just tell people, I'm like, before you change the circumstances of anything you're in, go get yourself better.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because once you get yourself better, and you just described all the things that were the benefit of getting yourself better. We created a work environment that forced you to get better. It went home. It got better for you at home. As a byproduct of those circumstances being better for you at home, you were able to bring the best version of yourself into this team.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And now this team, like, tell me about these changes. How did it impact on the way? Because you have proteges too. You have guys that you're coaching and mentoring that are going to sit in your chair one day.
Sure.
And those people had to sit up straight in their chair too and realize they don't move out of their cockpit and move up until the person that they've groomed has the same thing. So you have to go teach this shit downstream of you.
Well, and I think us more than most places are showing that we're trying to live by that too. You know, you have guys like Skylar, like Nathan, like Mike, like I could
too many to count.
I could sit here and name off
incredible
50 people that work for us. But you know, if I was going to relate it to myself and things like that, you know, like, how can I show up to work every day with somebody like you or somebody like Mike Sorelli or somebody like Joe who's got arms bigger than my head? You know what I mean? Like, if I want to show up and compete at that level, I got to be able to perform at a certain level. And what I like is I think our people see that. They see it. I don't want to call it a competition. It's not that it's a competition because it's not, but like, I don't know. You think fucking Michael Jordan hung out with people that didn't, you know, perform well?
No, they had standards and expectations.
Exactly.
And they challenged and pushed each other. Every major football team you go to, you watch their offense challenging their defense.
100%. And it, you know, with the things Mike's doing with Overwatch University, like there are people coming into this space today that will one day do what I do and do more than what I do. And that's what matters to me and what is important to me. You know, you gave me an opportunity to come into this space and learn and grow when I didn't even know what a data center was. And I owe that to other people as well, right? And honestly, the numbers speak for themselves when you talk about what it does for our team and everything like that. And you know, it correlates to the amount of time that I spend with my VPs, then the amount of time my VPs are spending with the directors, the amount of time the directors are spending in the field with our field employees and our clients. And you know, we never claimed to be the best or anything like that. We knew we were going to show up every day and try and be that. And we've fallen short plenty of times. You know, I think everybody does.
We're allowed to, we're growing.
Yeah. But you know, talking about what it did for a business. And obviously this is part of the industry too. But once all of us were on the same page at trying to be the best that we could be at what we were doing, I mean, we've went from 2 to 3 people a month to 20 people a month and over the course of 8 months. You know what I mean? Honestly, if you really sit back and look at it, and the crazy part is it's only ramping up. It's not slowing down. And had we not went through some of those trials and stuff like that, and had I not gotten my shit together, and we'd be struggling more, you know. I also hope that, you know, the people downstream of me and what they saw is you don't have to be perfect, right? I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. We never claimed to be. And you're not going to be crucified here for that. You're not going to, you know, be punished. Now, you continue to make the same mistake over and over again. That's a different story. But everyone's allowed to go through a rough patch. Everyone's allowed to have a tough time in life. Nobody ever said it was going to be easy, right? And we all got to learn and grow and do something different every day. And I want people to see, one, that anybody can do this. My point into going into my family and everything like that is I have every excuse in the world to be the same person I was a year ago, right? I travel all the time, busy family, busy everything, busy business. You know what I mean? Like, I have every excuse to be the same. You really only need one excuse to be different.
That's
you
it.
know, and
it helps to be around people that share that belief.
100%. Well, you and me have had multiple conversations about this, and you know, if you hang out with four losers, I'll show you the fifth eventually.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's true. And that's why it's just as important not to stay with a team that you're not fulfilled with. You know what I mean? Like, I'll challenge anybody out there right now, not for a selfish plug for ORF, right? But if you're in this space, if you're in the data center space and you feel like you're being overlooked, you feel like you're not being given opportunities, you're not growing, you're not being invested in, give us a call. Come check us out.
Or find a home that will give that to you. You need to be in a team.
100%. And we'll help you find it. You know what I mean? But I will never spend another day of my life not knowing that I'm doing what I want to be doing to try and be just a little bit better tomorrow. Right? Because we have finite time, and there's no time like the present. I spent a year and a half trying to figure out what I was doing, what I wanted to do, and why I wasn't doing X, Y, or Z. And it's literally just one decision, one day. And you got to have some determination and grit to get there. But everybody has that in them. You just got to find it.
What are some, I mean, this has been great, by the way. You know, I think that there's a lot of people that are out there trying to do the best thing that they can, and they don't know which way to go, left or right.
Yeah.
It's surprising to me. I surround myself with incredible mentors, people that I literally ask every question to. I could be as stupid as I want to with those questions. I think it's important to have people that you could go to with your questions, right?
100%.
I'm stunned to learn how few people in this industry have mentors. There's a lot of people that are just operating on their own operating system here. Maybe they try to emulate something that they've seen in some person, or they think that's the right career path. And what I've learned is if you don't give them something that inspires them, you don't let them feel safe in the environment they work in, and if they're not fulfilled, then they're only going to work for money. Yep. So you see those people, they commoditize themselves the most by just going out and finding a job that pays them the most, because if they're not going to be fulfilled, if they're not going to be safe, and they're not going to be inspired, then they might as well get paid.
Right.
But if you give them those other things, I'm not saying you could pay them less, but you pay them proportion to the value they have, and they'll maybe suffer an inconvenience by not going out and letting someone pick them up for $10,000 a year more, because they may get that, but they're not going to get the autonomy or the ability to grow at a different place.
Yeah, or they're not going to bitch about commissioning on the weekends or X, Y, or Z, right? Like, they're a team. They're going to want to be there to help the rest of the team succeed.
Right. So now that you've gone through this big transformation, I mean, we never arrive. This is a journey.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's taken us more than a year to get you back on this podcast. And I've asked you, I'm like, Jesse, let me know when you're ready and you feel like you've arrived to a point where you're capable of telling people that you're turning corners here,
yeah.
right?
And I told you multiple times I wasn't.
You're like, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Definitely ready now, right? You're at the best I've ever seen you at.
Yeah.
You're operating at the best level I've seen you at. And I could see it through your team. Your team's operating at a better level. And I could tell that because you're not a firefighter anymore. You're not running around having to solve all these problems. You have teams coming to you, you're telling them what to do, and they're going and executing, right?
Yeah.
It took a long time. You've been working with us for 5 years. So we started this company together 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And in the last year is that biggest journey for you. So imagine you're a startup entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur, I read something the other day, it was a meme on Instagram, and it was like, being an entrepreneur is like jumping off of a cliff and then building an airplane on your way down.
Yeah.
Right. And that is probably the best example to describe what we've done. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, for
no
sure.
idea what we were doing.
None.
Built data centers, haven't built companies, haven't built teams like this, been a part of teams like this, but never had to build them and lead them ourselves.
Agreed.
Right. So it's been this whole new thing, right? But this is still a journey. I mean, you're on another level now. You've reached another level, but you've not hit a plateau. I mean, what's next for you? What's the big changes and what's the big challenges? Because we're going to continue to do this, even if it's just once a year.
Yeah.
You haven't arrived yet.
No.
Neither have I.
We talked about this a little bit on the way here, and like goal setting is important, right? And everyone should have goals, and you should set a goal to achieve. But when it comes to like my health and my fitness and X, Y, or Z, like I don't have a specific goal of, I want to get to this weight or that weight, or I genuinely just want to do a little bit better tomorrow than I did yesterday, right? And with business, for that, I owe it to every single person that works at this company to come and try and be a little bit better every day and give somebody something every day. If it is only going to take 5 minutes out of my day to answer a phone call from one of our directors that is having an issue dealing with whatever it is, shame on me if I'm not going to answer that phone call. You know what I mean? And what's next for me is I haven't been going to as many events and things like that, and that, and part of it was just one, not being happy with the way I looked and stuff. Plus, I was trying to change some lifestyle choices in my life, and but I have the energy now. Like, I want to be out. I want to be engaging with our clients. I want to be engaging with our employees. I want to be engaging with my peers in the industry. I think you'll probably see a lot more of me at events and talking about people and how we're going to build teams and leadership moving into, this new age of AI. And, eventually you're going to get old enough, you know what I mean? And,
you gonna take it
eventually. I want to build something special. I want to be a part of something special. And, I have a special family at home. I have a great situation at home. I have a great situation here. I don't know what's next, for me. Obviously it's with this company and it's with our people, but I'm just excited to, if I feel this good right now and we can perform at this level right now, where will I be next year? You know what I mean?
Right.
Where will we be the year after that? And if it's literally, I'm here to tell you, it is literally just as simple as you just got to wake up every day and make a decision to try and do a little bit better. And that's all we can ask of anybody. But if you do that, that adds up, and it adds up fast. And I didn't think I would be sitting here, a year ago feeling the way that I feel. And what's next for me is if there's anybody that is struggling with some of that stuff, like, I'd love to talk to you about it and see what I can do. I don't have all the answers. Unfortunately, most of the answers are inside yourself. You just got to be the one to, get them out there. And, but yeah, I hope what's next for me is continuing to build these teams and, us having a profound impact on how this industry delivers AI and what's next for us as a civilization, right? Because this will change civilization, and how cool is it we get to be a part of it?
Yeah.
However big or small that story is, I'm just glad to be part of the story.
Yeah, no, I feel very blessed to be in this industry every day. I feel blessed to be at this company and work with the team that we get to work with. I would say, for those that are listening, like, Jesse's a great example of this industry, right? I mean, we all started from somewhere. I grew up low crawling through every data center conference and all the parties that came with them, and collected my share of hangovers and grew, and then something happened to where I think all of us collectively are beginning to wake up and realize like there's more out there, and I want to be healthier. I think that the goal is to just find a way to be healthier. I've learned that the healthier I am, the better man I am, the better parent I am, the better CEO I can be, the better leader and friend I could be. And I think that it's a journey, right? So for us, we're just trying to patch together these small wins. We take these wins from the minute we wake up in the morning to the minute we finish the gym, to the finish we make the first call. I mean, we just keep patching together these wins, and that's an addicting thing, is just to have 4 or 5 wins under my belt before the lunchtime, and I'm like, I'm unstoppable for the rest of the day. And building a team around us that want to have those small wins. We celebrate those wins, right? And it's just trying to like trigger our teams and those that are listening. There's people in this industry that they're not where they want to be. They're unfulfilled by what they're doing, and they are not sure where to find change. Everybody feels like you feel right now. Yeah. You felt like that, and you were a senior leader for this business, and our business was still growing, and we were still growing successfully, but we were not healthy. Yeah. Right. We were just trying to find a way. There's like the 5 phases of a business, right? Are you have to create something. And that's the most kinetic time for a business, is to create something that the market can find value in. Very hard to do. We've discovered that. Yeah. And once you do that and you created it, then you have to stabilize it. That's the second phase. And stabilizing anything, man, that is the hardest thing to do. And then when you're done stabilizing it, what you have to do is you have to standardize on that, right? And okay, that's it. Let's standardize on what that thing looks like. And once you standardize on it long enough, you begin to optimize it. The 4th phase is to optimize that business. And in optimizing it, you're finding the things that you're doing real well, and you just try to focus on doing a lot more of that, simultaneously removing the things that you don't do well. Okay, if you can't fix it fast, stop doing it, find someone else to do it. But optimizing it means that like you're really getting it to the point where unit-based metrics on everything you do, you understand exactly what to interpret. Everything is predictable, right? You should be able to do it in an optimized way. And you do that for the 5th reason, and that is so that you could scale. Yeah. This industry needs us to scale, but for us as humans, we kind of operate within those same similar phases. And those phases align, those 5 phases still align to the 5 phases of the data center life cycle. Everything that we do is a pattern, and we just tie back into it. What people that are listening need to understand is whatever you're feeling, you're not alone. Everyone has felt like that at some stage. You're in one of those stages that I just defined. And you have to figure out if you're in the right environment to grow. And most people that are unhappy in their work environment because they don't know how to grow. Yeah. Our number one focus became retention. And that meant that we had to give them a solution to how they could grow. That's the only way to retain, right? Yeah. Is teaching them and growing them is how you retain them.
I agree.
So, but that starts with us.
It does.
So any last minute advice or last pitches of advice you want to share with any of the listeners here? Because there are people that are listening that they were you, or they are you. They're just 5 years behind you or 6 years behind you. But there are people that are listening, both men and women, that are stuck in one of these phases and they're not sure what to do and they're not inspired by what they're doing or unfulfilled in some way. What advice do you have for them before we tune out?
I mean, it probably sounds cliche with, a lot of the motivational shit and everything you can see today, but failure is not a bad thing. Failure will teach you how to do things right and what things you're doing wrong. And you just have to start. You got to start somewhere. If all you can do is get up every day and walk 30 minutes out and walk 30 minutes back, do that. For me, I just started going fishing. I like fishing, and last summer I walked creeks and everything like that all the time.
Just to walk.
Just to walk, because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed fishing, and while I was fishing, it didn't feel like I was walking, you know what I mean? And then eventually things start to get easier. You start to feel, if you're like me, your body starts hurting a little bit less. You realize you can do a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then next thing you know, you're lifting weights with Joe Pins on. And, you know what I mean?
Savage.
Everybody's got to start somewhere. You just have to start, and it's just a decision. You just have to make the decision to start. The hard part is staying disciplined throughout it, and have a good support system. like me, I wouldn't have been able to do it without my wife and her support. I wouldn't have been able to do it without guys like you and Joe and Mike and everybody that I get to be around all the time. And it's important to lean on each other and use that support. And the biggest thing is you just got to start. Stop making excuses. Just start.
Man, I love it. Way to wrap that up. I mean, it is really just it's that simple. It's a decision.
It is.
And you just got to get started. And for anybody that's listening, I hope that this helped inspire them to maybe go make that decision. Maybe tonight they go home, they write it down, and they have a plan of what they're going to do tomorrow, and they make a decision. And they just wake up and they start executing, and they just keep patching together one day at a time, because you'll have it, and then you'll travel and you get on the road and you'll have a setback, and then you got to start back over again. But you just keep climbing the mountain.
That's it. And you will have setbacks.
It happens.
Without a doubt.
Well, listen, man, for anybody that's listening, thank you for following the Data Center Revolution. Thanks for listening to the whole podcast. Hopefully there's something here, because at some point we all started from somewhere. We're all on a journey. Every one of us. Some people know it, some don't. And if you don't know it, you're one of them. You're on this journey, and you have to start being a little bit more proactive in how you're going to guide your career.
I agree.
And that's the only person stopping you from being happy is you.
100%.
Right. So listen, thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Well, we're going to get it back on in a year from now, and we're going to follow the human reset with you and Jen Reniger, because she's obviously reinvented herself. She's a whole nother person. She's moving into different altitude and airspeed now, and it's great to see you doing the same. It's just incredible to see the people that you see struggling in that journey come out the other side as champions of themselves. It's incredible.
I appreciate it, and I will definitely be back, and we gotta keep going.
We have a lot of stuff to build. We have a lot of teams to build.
We do.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, man.
for being here.
Appreciate it.